In my hands right now is the brand new Hamilton Khaki Field Power Reserve. There are 4 new variants of this watch to choose between and 2 new dial colors. You have a black and you also have a beautiful white. And in this video, we're going to be diving into the intricacies of this new watch and discussing everything that you need to know. So it is no secret that within Hamilton's range, the Khaki Field is the most popular model. And as a result, the Khaki Field range is absolutely ginormous. So you have the Khaki Field Automatic, the Khaki Field Mechanical. You then have the Khaki Field Expedition. You have the Khaki Field Murph, which is the Murph featured in Interstellar. You have the Khaki Field Quartz. You have tons of color iterations, metal variations. It is an absolutely humongous range. But what I feel they were missing is a complication like this. Let me explain. The day or the date complication is really good, but it often gets missed for watch collectors. And the reason being is that they're constantly rotating between different watches, and just to change the date is an extra bit of hassle. I know that often when I am switching between all my watches, the date is the last thing I look at. In fact, I rarely set the date complication even though it's there, which I know is bad and I know a lot of people are going to hate, but it's just an extra bit of effort. In fact, the complication that I've found most useful, which is also on my Grand Seiko, is the Power Reserve. And I think there's 2 reasons for this. One is when you wind it and watch that Power Reserve indicator go up, it's really satisfying. And next, it's out of a safety standpoint. You don't want to overwind your watch because then you could damage the watch itself. So knowing that you can wind the watch until it's fully powered, it kind of prevents against that damage. So actually from a security and safety standpoint for your watch, it's really, really good. And that is the new complication that they've actually introduced on these models. So you do have 2 different variations of this watch to choose between. You do have a white dial and you also have a black dial. Now, both the black and the white come with a green, beautiful NATO strap. And it's actually the same green NATO strap that I have on my Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition. It's a dark khaki green type navy that just works so well with the exploration element of this watch. These watches all come in at 40 millimeters in diameter, 11.95 millimeters in height, and have a lug width of 20 millimeters. Now, I do have to say that despite these watches coming in at 40 millimeters, I do feel that especially the black dial, it wears just that little bit bigger. And I think the reason being is the way that the bracelet connects to the case. I would actually say it wears more like a 41 or a 42. It's definitely that little bit more chunky than you might think. By the way, guys, something that you might not have noticed is the quick release system on the bottom of the bracelet right here. So you can just, easy as that, squeeze those 2 little pins together and it comes apart. And the difference this makes to the case size, or the perceived case size when you remove the bracelet, is kind of incredible. It really is. The bracelet makes it look that just a little bit bigger. Guys, by the way, I have a clamp and I'm just going to measure the face of this watch because I feel like it is just that little bit bigger than 40, and I am wrong. It's literally on the dot 40 millimeters. All of these watches come in full stainless steel, and you can choose between the NATO or, of course, the 3-link bracelet, and they have a deploying clasp at the bottom just here, which is really, really nice and actually feels quite premium. Now, when you look at the stainless steel, you can see that it's that sand-blasted, textured stainless steel that we can see on other Hamilton Khaki Field models. And that makes it that little bit more muted down, that little bit darker of a metal, and that little bit more stealthy, outdoorsy kind of vibe of a metal. Whenever you get polished metal, typically it's a more dressy watch. And you can see this on Grand Seikos, for example. The Zuratsu polishing makes it that little bit more dressy, makes it that little bit more eye-catching and reflective. But if you want to wear a watch in the field, you want something that's that little bit more rugged, that little bit more tough, and that's where this fits the bill. It does have sapphire crystal glass with anti-reflective coating and is water resistant to 50 meters. And now we get to the dial detail. Now, of course, like I said before, guys, there are 2 different variations. I prefer the white, being totally transparent and honest, purely because I'm so biased. But let's look at the black at the moment. So we can see on the dial a lot of the same DNA from the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical running through this watch. On the left-hand side, beside the 9 o'clock marker, we can see the Power Reserve indicator. The F and the E for full and empty being in red, which gives a really nice, distinctive bit of color to these watches that are a lot of the time more muted down. Above the 6 o'clock mark, you can see that it has the Power Reserve 80 hours. Now, I'm not sure why they put that on the dial, if I'm perfectly honest. I think it makes it look a little bit more busy. I think with my Explorers Outdoors watches, I like them being really simplistic. I like them being very stripped down just to basics, because to me, it's all about telling the time. And that's all you need to know at the point when you're out and about on these adventures. The hands and the indices are actually covered with old rhodium colored Super Luminova. And this gives it that really distinct vintage, kind of faded effect. Now, when you flip this watch around to the closed case back, you can see that it has the Hamilton engravings in there. And behind the closed case back, it actually has a pretty interesting movement. Behind the closed case back, it has the H23 mechanical movement, and this has 80 hours of power and also a Niverchron balance spring. Now, we all know this movement because it is an ETA movement that Hamilton have been using for a very long time, not this specific one, but the H10, etc., etc. They're all from ETA. Swatch owns ETA, and I've often said in these videos that just because a brand uses an ETA movement does not mean the movement is inherently bad. Now, for these watches with the NATO strap, you're paying about £760, whereas for these watches with the silver steel bracelet, you're paying about £840. And actually, I'm really impressed with this watch. I genuinely have to say, I really actually am. I think it's a really welcome expansion to the Hamilton Khaki Field line. I love Hamilton as a brand, and I do like the fact that they're adding those extra complications, those extra little watch nerdy details that will get new watch lovers into watches even more. Because I think Hamilton at its core is that entry point to luxury watches. It's where people begin when they want to get into luxury watches. So if you can add those subtle complications that make people want to buy not only the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical, but then the Power Reserve, it makes a lot of sense. It's that natural progression within the Hamilton brand. And also it gets more people into watches, into complications, and thus our industry. I think this is a really welcome expansion, and I really love Hamilton as a brand. I think it's an epic watch. I really, really do, but I do prefer the white dial. With that said though, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feelings about this watch. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button or follow our Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches or my Instagram at HB Lifelens. And I'll see you guys, and our podcast, forgot to say that, podcast, Into the Mind podcast. And I'll see you guys real soon.